Sonic X Shadow Generations, everyone's favorite selection of Sonic the Hedgehog levels. Some stages are perfectly crafted, visually stunning, and shortcut ridden, while others are still really good honestly, but fall short in some aspects. Today, we're gonna look at every 3D stage throughout Sonic X Shadow Generations and rank them from worthless to elite. And if you want to see a ranking for all the 2D levels, let me know in the comments. Number 16, Chemical Plant. One of the most memorable stages from Sonic 2 because of its high speed, gazillion loop-de-loops, and avoidable water sections. And this version retains a lot of that. It's still not a bad level, there's just steep competition. Almost all the 3D moments are complete straightaways, the platforming sections in 2D are slow, they brought back these things, and if you don't know where the better routes are, you're going underwater and dealing with those physics. I would still take this over any Sonic Forces level, but it's still just barely worse than number 15, Green Hill Zone. Still mostly boost spamming through a hallway in 3D, but the rail grinding part with the giant robo fish is awesome, the 2D platforming is a bit better, and there's no underwater, so W. 14, Planet Wisp. This one starts out so good, and it kills me to put it this high, but it gets worse as it goes on and just doesn't know when to end. The first phase of it is lush with greenery, has some really solid 3D platforming moments, and by itself could be a top 5-ish level, but as soon as you enter the factory portion, it goes plummeting downhill. After like a minute and a half, it goes fully 2D and doesn't look back for the remainder of the 6-minute runtime. They brought back the Rocket Wisp from Sonic Colors, and it's harmless enough, but the platforming surrounding its use is slow. Why do you have to sit on this and wait with the fucking Eggman robo? It's a challenging level, I'll give it that, but it's more a test of patience than platforming skill, because all the tough jumps are done at ridiculously low speeds. 13, Rail Canyon. This is a really solid level, but it is the weakest of the new Shadow levels in my opinion. Visually, it's astonishing. The Sunset Desert is a beautiful aesthetic, and any level that morphs into a radical highway segment gets automatic bonus points. But given the namesake, a lot of the stage is spent on rail, which is totally fitting, but it's not as fun to be restricted to a rail as it is to fully move through a level. It definitely makes the most of the concept, with Chaos Control being used to prevent robots from destroying certain rails, these switches to open up new paths, and a super menacing razor train chasing you down. It definitely has its moments, so it just goes to show how incredible the entire stage selection is in this game. 12, Radical Highway Act 1. For as hype as it was to see a recreation of Shadow's most iconic level, playing through it wasn't as good as I thought. Don't get me wrong, it's super nostalgic for me, there's tons of callbacks built into the design, and the Doom Wings being implemented is awesome. But they also just let you fly over a lot of the level's substance, and glide ahead with not a whole lot of player input. Also, the Doom Spear is relied on quite a bit, and I always just forget Shadow has that ability, and this part where you press a bunch of buttons to make more of a path appear while shooting away barrier things is just straight up terrible. I wanna like this one, but it's not really my thing. And again, this is just my opinion, you're welcome to disagree, and I encourage you to share your takes in the comments. But number 11, Speed Highway. It ain't lying, this one keeps up a pretty fast pace from start to finish. That's both a good thing and a bad thing, because it feels pretty satisfying to fly through, but a lot of it is just straight lines. This whole sequence where he's running down a skyscraper is sick, and I love the reference, but it's not as impressive to see as it was back in 1999, and it's just like a 10-15 second hold boost. A lot of the levels have moments like that, but I felt it the most here. It treats it like this big, whoa, look what he's doing, but he's just chilling in a boost. Running sideways on buildings and flying through the sky holding onto helicopters is pretty rad though. 10, Seaside Hill. This isn't a super iconic Sonic stage, but graphically, it's one of the nicest looking here. The beautiful sunshiny day on the beach with the rainbows in the sky, and the return of Sonic's arch rival, the giant whale. There's a great balance of 2D and 3D platforming here, and the fact that they worked in the tri-split pathways from Heroes is so cool, especially with the outcomes flipping every couple seconds, and there being a super fun racing section if you pick the fast one. Now, the classic version of this level is a completely different story, but guess what? We don't have to talk about it right now. 9, Space Colony Arc. This is easily the best introductory level in a Sonic game since City Escape. It's easy for any newcomer to pick up and have a ton of fun with, but going back after beating the game, there's still enough here to challenge and surprise you. There's so many hidden shortcuts and segments where the level opens right up and gives you handfuls of route options. And it's so good for replayability because I want to know what they all do. And visually, this is pristine. It captures the vibe of the original Space Colony levels from Adventure 2 to a T, and with modern hardware powering it, it's a spectacle. There are these extended sequences with Black Doom that kinda drag it out, but being the first level, it had to establish the plot, so I get it. It just makes it a little longer to replay. 8. Radical Highway Act 2. Unlike the first act, which tried to feel like the original, but also used all the new abilities in interesting ways, this one goes all out to be different. All the roads are twisted and broken apart, making you run on the side of them in some cases. You've got the wings again, but now need them to fight this giant monster, and there's a billion different gliding routes that are really fun to take. The monster things you're fighting are kinda anticlimactic because they're stupid easy, but from far away they look pretty scary. 7. Sunset Heights. I've made my disdain for Sonic Forces abundantly clear at this point, but they somehow turned a hallway in that game into a peak Sonic level. It's got some of the best uses of Chaos Control in the entire game, and it's got the coolest spectacle moment of possibly the entire series. Seriously, this goes way too hard. And the Doom Distorted section has these cylindrical roads that are pretty unique. The only real downside is that it's kinda linear compared to the other levels in Shadow Generations, but it had to be somewhat faithful to Forces, so I'll give it the pass. This is still bueno as hell. 6. City Escape. Based on one of the all-time great Sonic the Hedgehog stages, this revival captures all the keynotes of the original and builds on them in super fun ways. The snowboarding section has way more ramps and routes, the truck at the end now has saws sticking out, and it forces you to quick-step and actually play the game instead of just holding forward, and if you know the layout, it might have the most seamless flow in the entire game. 5. Chaos Island. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of this one, but it's grown on me a ton as I've gotten more used to using the Doom Sludge. Now, I usually don't like it when gimmicky things are added to my Sonic stages, like I said about the Rocket Wisp, but the Sludge is still super interactive and allows you to swing around like Spider-Man and swim up walls. Using it in conjunction with the rest of Shadow's abilities feels so smooth, but even still, the beauty of these levels is that there's almost always a split path, so you can mostly avoid it if you don't want to use it. I feel like the skill ceiling for this level is super high, because it incorporates all Shadow's new abilities at some point, and I'm really excited to keep exploring and getting better at it. 4. Crisis City. This level's a fantastic blend of speed and challenge. The first half of the stage is fully 3D, and there's tons of really tricky and skillful jumps to be made. And that difficulty carries into the 2D, which again has some really solid platforming. I love the new lava spurts you can slam down and can launch you higher for collectibles. It's a cool gimmick. And what better way for the stage to end than with a nod to the Mach Speed sections from Sonic 06. Except here, the quick step actually makes it manageable and pretty exhilarating. 3. Kingdom Valley. This might be the recency bias talking, but this is a perfect recreation of the most synonymous level from Sonic 06, and it plays better than almost any other stage. Like I said for the Space Colony, there's parts where it offers like 10 different routes, and it genuinely doesn't even feel like a linear stage. Screw Kingdom Valley, this Yoshi Valley. I've played the stage a dozen times already and still feel like I haven't seen half of it. There's these rope things to jump off that you can stomp on for extra height, and there's always a secret up top. The Chaos Control Doom Blast combo opens up a slew of new passages, and the Doom Surf spots have secrets tucked in every corner. It is so dense with alternate ways to play, and even things like the wind streams replacing the regular rails make it seem so fresh. And the return of the Eagle to carry you around made me so fucking happy. Also, like Crisis City, they brought back the Mach Speed section, and look at how far we've come. 2. Sky Sanctuary. This level is just about flawless. It naturally works in so many different ways to go, and the optimal route is almost always obvious, but it requires a lot of skill, which is ideal. There's not many prolonged straightaways, there's a ton of opportunities to 3D platform to save time, and if you fail, there's a fun path waiting for you down below. The 2D sections are brief, and outside of the stupid button gimmick and vines to grab onto, they're great. I love the bouncy clouds they added to this level only. It's a perfect recreation of a classic stage that breathes so much new life into it that it's now one of modern Sonic's all-time greatest levels. But it's not as good as number 1, Rooftop Run, which you probably saw coming, but there's a good reason for that. This stage is one of the best from Sonic Unleashed, and they didn't do much to change it for this version. It takes place in this super lively city that's overflowing with detail, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, the music throughout this entire game is stellar, but this track in particular is one of the most lively and celebratory songs I've ever listened to. It sets up such a fast and upbeat vibe, and the level design plays right into that. You're running across rooftops, that's why they call it that. You scale this giant clock tower and ascend through this colorful hot air balloon festival. Sonic X Shadow Generations is a celebration of the Sonic series, and this stage seems like the culmination of everything the title stands for. But what did I get right and what I get wrong? Leave your thoughts on everything down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.